Yeah, thank you. I thought it was important to convey to you two types of message. The first one is that as you may have experienced simply by walking the corridors and being in the rooms, this is the largest summit of the ITF ever. We've grown the number of participants. As of early this morning, we had 1,355, from a previous total of about 1,100, so something like 250 people more. The number of countries has risen from a previous maximum of 71 to 80. And the number of ministers and vice ministers present is 41. So we've been growing. That is a signal of that strong mountain that I was showing you in the slides that I presented in the closed session. Second is that we are very proud and happy to have the government of Saxony as our regional partner. This is shown in some of the activities. This is shown in a financial contribution. This will be shown in some artistic contribution during our gala dinner tonight. So a very warm welcome and very warm thanks to the government of Saxony for helping us. It's probably a coincidence that the maximum number of participants and countries present comes at that moment, but this hopefully opens the door to an even stronger summit in the years to come. What about where is the Mexican minister?
distinguished member and guest ministers, heads of international organizations, entrepreneurs and industry leaders, and summit participants. Also, on behalf of all ITF ministers, warmly welcome our invited speakers, Mr. Chong Meng TAN, Chairman and President of PSA International, and Mr. Yusuf AKÇAYOÐLU, Executive President of IGA Airports Constructions. Sirs, we thank you very much for being with us today. We look forward to an interesting exchange with you during this session. First, I would like to share with you all that during our closed ministerial session, we agreed the declaration from ministers on governance of transport. The full declaration is now available to you here in the room, and I invite you to read it carefully and reflect on how governments and different actors together should take forward its conclusions to ensure robust governance of transport in the future. Also, I would like to communicate you that Kazakhstan and the United Arab Emirates have just been welcomed as new members of the International Transport Forum. I am sure both Kazakhstan and the United Arab Emirates are going to be great additions to the ITF. Welcome to you both, Dr. Abdullah Al-Katheri from the United Arab Emirates and Director General Samir Sakinov, representing the Minister of Kazakhstan. Could I now ask ITF Secretary General José Villegas to say a few opening remarks, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. It's a privilege that I was able to serve the International Transport Forum for these 5 years. So my message today to you is very simple. Thank you for the trust you have deposed on me and for the conditions that you have given us to work with the Secretariat, with your teams, and with the Corporate Partnership Board. And I express my wish that you continue to give this strong support to my recently elected successor, Mr. Yang Tae Kim from Korea, and that the ITF will continue to prosper. Thank you.
Thank you again, Secretary General José Villegas. Before going forward, it is also my pleasure to introduce to you the new Secretary General-elect of the ITF, Mr. Yang Tae Kim, elected by ministers to lead the ITF when the current mandate of Secretary General José Villegas comes to close in August of this year. Congratulations to Mr. Tae Kim. Now I will continue with our important topic, safe and reliable transport networks foster and facilitate trade and mobility. Transportation opens new markets and promotes job creation, access to education and health, and thus increases productivity, raises the standard of living, and promotes economic and social development. We will analyze the main challenges that transport governance must overcome to strengthen global connectivity, as well as the importance of public policy and regulation in other matters, and their relationship with the transport of people and goods. Innovation is one of the topics most discussed and analyzed at this summit. It will be very useful to know how the experiences and expectations of transport entrepreneurs on the road of technological innovation help to foster connectivity and collaboration. This session will be attended by the most qualified experts and scholars who will share with us their knowledge and expertise. And this will undoubtedly enrich the experience of all ministers of transport that are here today. I thank everyone for their interest in this exercise, which will be enriching for all of us. Before moving to our moderator today, it is my pleasure to present a video message by the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres. Please.
I thank the International Transport Forum for working on policies that can improve people's lives. Sustainable transport drives sustainable development. But in many countries, roads, transport services and policies do not meet people's needs. This affects individuals and all planet. Planes, trains, cars and other vehicles generate almost a quarter of all greenhouse gas emissions worldwide. And another public health concern is road safety. Last year, approximately 1.25 million people were killed in crashes. These challenges demand sustainable transport, which can help realize the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the Paris Agreement on Climate Change. I welcome your focus on governance to improve infrastructure investment, global connectivity, innovation and life in cities. And the United Nations stands ready to partner with you in promoting sustainable transport and mobility for all. Thank you.
Well, I'm sure that was a relevant message. And now I will pass the word to our great moderator for today, Pat Cox. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Pat Cox.
Thank you, Mr. President. This morning, as you know, I mentioned earlier, we have a tight time constraint. I can come to our rules of engagement later, but let me begin immediately by turning to our two special guests today, CEOs who will bring their message to us. We have a short possibility to pose some questions or to make some comments, if you wish, after each presentation. I invite now to make his presentation Mr. Chong Meng TAN, CEO of PSA International Port Terminal Operator in Singapore, and he's going to deal with connectivity, maritime and hinterland. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Pat, and Mr. President, honourable ministers, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It is a privilege to be here and share with you my thoughts on this topic from the perspective of maritime supply chain and also from the perspective of the business. It's difficult entering a forum like this not to be bombarded with buzzwords like digitalization and disruption and Industry 4.0, big data, smart port, smart transport, and so on. In fact, coming into Leipzig, taking a Eurowings flight, I was even slightly amused that the economy class seat in Eurowings is called smart. Maybe it's just saying that you can get to the same place at the same time for less money. But apparently the business class seat is called best, so smart is still not the best. Anyway, let's hope it's more than a marketing label, but it's a sincere attempt to change reality for the better. What is reality now? The situation now in maritime supply chain is that we are already a highly connected world, served by relatively low-cost global supply chain components. And I use the word relatively because relative to the value of cargo, actually maritime movements is relatively cheap. In the last 3 to 4 decades, the development in this area has enabled rapid globalization, economic growth in many countries, fostering wealth creation as well as enabling consumption. Policymakers' past efforts have certainly been rewarded. But today, we are not satisfied. And why is that? And I submit that there are two main reasons. As good as we are today, there are still dysfunctionalities in the supply chain and logistics of goods. We can certainly do a better job. Now, think about the contrast with the information supply chain, if you like. 20 years ago, when you click on internet, when it first came about, information was scanned and it was slow. Today, terabytes are moved. You can get instant information despite the volume of information that has to flow. And there is an infrastructure that is behind that. On the good side, we have certainly coped with supply-driven ambitions to cope with what the world needs. But today, as volume has grown, we have not necessarily gotten better in providing the shippers the solutions that they need. So there are still dysfunctionalities. Second reason, global trends are taking us into a future where today's connectivity will be rendered or will be found inadequate. We see the trends of urbanization and a balancing act that you have to go to, honorable ministers, about balancing the needs between people and goods for transport. We see changes in consumption patterns, how people want reliable delivery on time faster, and technology that is enabling the discovery of customer appetites is the same technology that is disrupting, creating possibilities, but also at the same time threats if they are not addressed. And the changes, of course, in trade patterns as a result of market evolution. Take the region where I'm from, ASEAN, for instance, which in 10, 15 years' time aspire to be a much bigger economic bloc. Certainly, it will move from being a commodity region, a farm, a mine, a factory, to become a marketplace. So we are constantly in need of adjusting trade flows, and the components that make up the enablement of this will also need to be changed. What are our challenges? On the physical side, I think our challenges today are the result of our past success. It's created some legacies because we have rapidly created supply of supply chain capability to meet the rapid rise in needs. And one example being, say, in shipping, where compared to 30 years ago, the size of ships today are about 8 times larger. In fact, it's doubled in size every 8 years. And you should question whether this rise on the shipping leg is done in a coordinated fashion with what is happening on the land side, because obviously they're all part of the same chain. And a few years ago, when we saw the advent of these megaships, and we're still seeing more of them being delivered today, you find that there is a mismatch between a change in form or structure on one part of the chain with the rest of the chain. And it exposes the other challenge, which is the fragmentation of the supply chain, especially on the land side. Today, we have fewer and fewer shipping lines, but we still have many players on the land side. So there's physical mismatch, but because of fragmentation, we also have information and systems disconnects. Not wrong in themselves, not a problem in themselves, because we can still optimize within our respective silos, but as a community, we will not be able to capitalize on what future technology can offer if we do not address this. The systems that are available in the current nodes of the supply chain are like little brains trying to improve on their respective stations. But as a whole, where is the super brain? And I submit then that that's the role which good governance can play. Somebody said yesterday logistics is a team sport. So we need a framework within which we ensure that the players can exercise their best efforts, take into consideration long and short-term factors, and also take upon themselves lessons learned. I gave the shipping example, and I should ask 2 questions then, following the shipping example. Should there be a governance on the size of ships? There isn't one. Should there be a relationship between size of ships and the rest of the supply chain? Today, for instance, we see increasing consolidation and alliancing, and 3 alliances now cover 80% of global maritime capacity, shipping capacity. They are now consolidated more into key hubs around the world. And when one hub becomes disrupted because of weather or because of congestion, other hubs are also affected. When there is a governance on alliancing and on consolidation, but mainly driven from commercial considerations, perhaps. And the question then is the operational risk due to concentration considered? And at some point, I think it may be something that is important for us to think about. So governance which allows for checks and balances and adjustments, I think are very important. But today, we want to look at what may enable us to actually apply future opportunities, technology, new systems, as opposed to check and balance. So I only raise that as an example. Good governance, I submit, will help us to have better coordinated infrastructure and integrated systems. On the infrastructure side, it would mean intelligent macro planning that guides or steers smart investment decisions across the chain, based on, hopefully in future, dynamic modeling as opposed to static additions, based on scalability and adjustability over time, and enables the adoption of future technologies like autonomous vehicles, robotics, IoT, digitalization. On the part about system integration, the purpose would be to enable not just a more productive system or a chain, but one that is more responsive and better able to predict the outcomes that are served by the chain. The containers of the future are likely not just to have track and trace, but able to speak for themselves and speak for their cargo. At least they will be vocal. They will not be smart because, unlike air passengers, they are not able to decide things themselves. But there will be more transparency on what the cargo needs and how it needs to be taken care of. But today, the data that is available, I mean, for us in the port, we have very little knowledge of what is in the container, because the data that is available within a system somewhere is actually not shared and held within silos. I think it will serve us well going forward to develop good governance over data sharing, data protocols, data usage, which enables data transparency, and also to have good governance over the formulation of what would be good supply chain platforms that enable the various parts of the supply chain to co-optimize, as opposed to optimizing within themselves. I know there are efforts going on in this area, especially in customs, but I think in the physical flow side and the financial flow side, more things can be done. Finally, what are the benefits? I would say that as we get it right, and it's not just a business perspective, but I hope it's a collective ambition, that for one thing, shippers and customers will get their job done as they want it. The asset owners and the service providers along the supply chain will have better deployment of capital, better usage of their assets, more productive, more efficient outcomes. And finally, for countries and markets, a better proposition for investors to come and use your location and serve your markets. This is my intervention. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me ask you one or two brief questions, and I invite, if ministers want to make a short intervention or pose a question, please indicate. Listening to your remarks, you posed one question, which was about the size of ships. Addressing an audience of transport ministers, do you have a preferred answer to the question which you asked?
Well, there's a relative and an absolute answer, Pat. The relative answer is, I think that it has to be in proportion and in recognition to the size of cargo, the growth in cargo, as well as the other physical parts of the supply chain, as in the state of ports. So it should be done, because these ships call at many ports, not just one. So the world must be ready. Decisions have to be taken based on an audit of the readiness of the world. This is theoretical. Of course, in business, we are guided by regulations but driven by competition. So it's hard to tell people no. But I think there should be a good answer on a relative basis, like a ratio between the size of ships and size of other facilities and cargo. But there's also an absolute, and that is what is the safe handling of a ship. There is indeed an upper limit. I think we are close to it, but nobody is absolutely saying so.
You've talked about the dramatic growth in size by a factor of 8 in 30 years and doubling in size every 8 years. That means when you're doing your CapEx planning for ports, I guess you also need to know in order to optimize your investment scheduling. You're
absolutely right. I think we all know if, let's say, the infrastructure is superseded by the users, the demands of the users, we are faced with obsolescence and we are faced with defensive investment. I think ports are built for about 25 plus minus 30 years. And hopefully the ships that they serve will have certain stability in characteristics. But today that is not the case. And as a result, you've exactly put your finger on the challenge that ports are facing after the seaside changes have taken place. But I should also say it's not about just the ports, because as ships get bigger, the amount of cargo unloaded at a single time also gets larger. And we saw instances where roads cannot cope or rail cannot cope, as in the Battle of the Bulge. So it's a system game, it's a team sport, and so that's why I say, there are some mismatch and dysfunctionalities.
Let me turn briefly to the governance question, which you've raised in a very elegant way. You talked about optimizing within your own silo and other silos optimizing within their silo. To do with the system you know best, which is in Singapore, how is the governance question in that more macro and holistic sense being addressed, and whose job is it to lead the addressing of such a question?
I would say it's a committee of, or a cluster of people that represent the various segments of the supply chain, guided within the Ministry of Transport, Maritime Port Authority, addressing the facilitation of systems that will enable better handshakes between different parts of the chain. I'll give you an example, just a very quick one. We all know that if the truckers' schedule are not aligned with the shipping schedule, you'll get lots of traffic jams at the entrance to port. And we see that in many countries, right? But in Singapore, we don't have those traffic jams because we have a port community system that facilitates the handshake between the port and the trucker system, the forwarders and the hauliers. And they need to arrive when they are expected, not before and not after. And so this is one example. And at the different interfaces, different attention can be paid depending on the technology available. Today, there's more technology that we can bring to bear. And that same cluster of interested parties will be the ones to try and find a way to the future.
Thank you. I think there's a lot more wisdom we could take from you, and I apologize due to pressure of time. I'm going to move on, if I could, and to invite the CEO of the Istanbul Grand Airport project, Yusuf AKÇAYOZLU, please, to address us.
Dear President, ministers, and distinguished guests, first of all, I would like to give us such an opportunity to talk today. Today, I'm going to talk about a little bit the mega project we have undertaken in Istanbul Grand Airport, which is named Istanbul New Airport. But before going through the project details, I would like to talk about a little bit history of the evolvement of the transport industry in Turkey. All countries have some competitive advantages. Let's say some oil-rich countries, they have competitive advantage on oil due to their natural resources, etc. Let's say if you come to Turkey, our geographic location, it's really competitive advantage in our opinion. If you look the world map as a rectangular, you will see the Turkey is sitting in the center weight of the world right now, from the east to the west and from the north to the south. But does it mean that, for example, from Istanbul, just for 3 hours flight perimeter, you are able to capture almost 60% of the world's most advanced economies? So being crossroad of the continents, etc., really it gives a big advantage to Turkey to be a transport leader in many aspects of transport, starting from the energy, from the rail, from the goods and passengers. This advantage recently captured very well by the government, and starting from 2002, let's say, in Turkey we had only 26 airports, but since then we have 57 airports in Turkey, and now soon it's going to be 61. Behind that surplus is that the government, especially under the leadership of the Minister of Transportation, there was a very good successful campaign run. The campaign slogan was, every low income and middle income could fly. So that what happened later on, in 2008, let's say, we had 70 million only international and local passenger number. It has increased to 180 million right now. And after the third airport, we are hoping it will increase more. So coming to that point, of course, this successful campaign enabled our flagship airline, Turkish Airlines, which is, to expand really aggressively. Right now, it is the #1 airline in the world in terms of the destination it's flying, 250 destinations and 110 countries. I will come later on to the reason behind that. Before that, let's say, once we have now our passenger numbers grow, second, we have a flagship airline, and the third arm of the aviation is, of course, the infrastructure for that to demand. So these two demands, the passenger numbers and the Turkish Airlines growth, induced the government to launch Turkish modern history's largest aviation tender, which is the third airport, in 2003 May. This tender was quite transparent. It was live broadcast all local channels and media. It was on front of all disciplines. And then in this tender, our joint venture has won the tender by offering 22.5 billion euro for 25 years of concession to the government. The tender was based on the money you are offering for the rent. So 22.5 billion euro was offered by us, plus we have been spending 10.3 billion euro for the construction, capex. So in total, we are reaching almost 35 million plus VAT. So we are talking about around 40 billion euro magnitude for a single project. This project made the history in Turkey. Yes, it is the largest infrastructure project ever in Turkish modern history. So let's come to the project. So then in May 1st, we had the kickoff, May 1st, 2015, which is our duration, 42 months of the construction start kicking back. We have offered 76.5 million square meter land for this development. This is currently the world's largest airport development, which is enabling us to fit in 6 independent runways, all are Cat 3, and 2 terminals and 1 satellite terminals. And with the 4 phases, in the ultimate phases, we have reaching around 200 million passengers per annum. But in first phase, which we are focusing right now, in fact, it's representing almost 55% of the whole development with the 6 billion euro investment. We had 6 banks of syndication as a IGA, and we raised the loan because the job is bankable and feasible. All these banks are 3 of them Turkish bank and 3 of them Turkish bank but foreign capitals. Right now, we have this for 2 months. We have spent almost half of it. Now, in 2000 October, our contractual duration is ending. So our aim is to complete the job on time. Currently, we have been employing around 27,000 men in the job site. 3,000 of it is engineers and technicians and architects. And in terms of the number of the equipment we are employing right now, it's again world's largest construction site. Around 3,000 heavy equipment we have been using right now. I would like to mention that this project definitely will contribute not only to the Turkish economy and the aviation industry, definitely will contribute for the global aviation industry. Why we are telling that? Currently, Atatürk Airport is serving around 63 million passengers, and 45% it transfer passengers. When it was built in 1988, it was in another BOT success story, by the way. It was not assuming this number of transfer, and then later on altering some systems in the terminal. Now it's trying to serve at most to transfer passengers. But of course, you cannot sustain for long term like that. Besides passenger comfort, there is a slot problem, the slot constraint in the airport right now. In this slot constraint especially, not enabling the other airlines, for example, from China, from Korea, from India, from Asia, from other parts of the world, are not flying from Turkey because of this slot problem mostly. With this third airport, we are sure that these airlines will also fly from us, and they will increase their capacities with that way. As I said, the market pie is becoming bigger with this third airport. And this airport, definitely, we believe it will make Turkey as a new hub, especially for the transfer. This 3-hour destination from the Istanbul with the narrow body flights, that will make the tickets definitely cheaper for the world travelers. This is our assumption also. For the economic impact also, we had some independent studies we have conducted in Turkey, what would be the other triggering effect for the economy of Turkey. We have witnessed really very drastic figures. We saw that after completing the 4 phases, this project itself will represent around 4.89% of whole country's GDP. It is really a massive number. This means around $20 million contribution will come from this project only. At the ultimate phase, we are going to have around 225,000 direct employment. This direct employment will touch, of course, around 2 million people with the family and etc. if you count it. Also, the project is a 76 million square meter. As I said, it gives us 10.5 million square meter of the airport city to employ. In this airport city, we have planned also logistics cities, free trade zones, convention centers, and other support facilities. Besides, we have a seaport, mainly is going to be used for the jet fueling, but it can be expanded for other goods. Well, I had just only 7 minutes. That's why I'm finishing right now. We will be happy to answer later on your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. AKÇAYOÐLU, for that presentation. Listening, if I might say, with my European ears, I have a question which fascinates me. You're building the biggest civil engineering project in your country's history, perhaps one of the biggest civil engineering projects in the world today, and you've all these ambitious deadlines, and it seems to be going very much to plan as you have described it. Could I ask you, before you signed a tender, what were the procedures to do with environmental impact assessment, planning requirements, appeals of objectors and so on? I ask because everywhere, at least in Europe, where you plan an airport, you have to plan a very, very long time for all these other things which are an indispensable part of the arrival of new infrastructure of that sort.
Thank you very much, Pat. It's a great question. Thank you for that question. Yes, there is some kind of perception locally and worldwide, in fact. During the tender, this abundance of the land, yes, it's an advantage for a massive development, but it was a really disadvantage for any contractor in terms of the soil situation. That place, it's located in northwest of the Istanbul, and it was, since 1940s, it has been used as a coal mine. It was used by the coal miners. So what in the old technology, what they have done is open excavations on those areas, and they took the coal and they left the place like that. So later on, the rainwaters, etc., they ruined the places. So we have been really using all kind of soil treatment methods right now to create the platform. Coming to the tender process, yes, we have to oblige all the environmental standards which are set in Turkey. But beside that, what we have done, because it's a mega project and getting attention of the world, we have put the IFC standards for the environmental standards, which we were not supposed to do, but we have done it as based on the IFCs, in terms of wild management, in terms of all this plant transition, etc. Is there any distinctive extinctions happening or not? We are really, we have even ornithologists working for us, like 6 people on the ornitholog for the bird observation, and we have been using the last techniques to absorb all this wild management. To have in this area such job, it's enabling us to have the most sophisticated systems to implement in the project.
Let me ask you, if I can, a final question. Again, I'm conscious of our time, and it's a pity we have to keep it so short. You talked about the BOT system, to build, to operate, and to transfer. Could you just explain the characteristics of that model? We have many ministers here. Many of them will have public financial constraints, so they're interested in crowding in private finance. And you're saying the BOT, the Build, Operate, Transfer model, is a really good one. A very brief picture. What is it? How does it work? And why should some ministers think of looking at it?
Yes, gladly. You know, BOT is a model in Turkey. It's really very successfully implemented by the Ministry of Transportation. In the last 15 years, we have had around 10 airports through BOT. It is, in my opinion, the best model ever for any construction project, if it is the mega. First of all, it proves the feasibility of the job. It doesn't mean that there is a political motivation behind of it or not. It has to be feasible and bankable first. But before that, to have the 2 parameters, you got to have a really stable economy, stable government, stable bureaucracy is a must before that. Because why? We are collecting the revenues with the local currency, and our payments are in the euro or dollars. So the political stability and economic stability is a must over there. Coming to the Turkey, really right now we can talk even about Turkish model about the BOT, because since almost 15, 20 years, whole mega projects, I can tell, including the bridges, the 3rd bridge, and now another Çanakkale Bridge, which is recently by the Ministry of Transportation successfully tendered. All are BOT. What BOT makes? BOT first makes zero burden to the countries, economic burden, zero. Second, whomever undertakes the project, there are very big motivation behind it to finish it as early as possible, in order to gain from the concession period. Let's say you have 5 years of construction. If you complete in 4 years, you are gaining a 1 year of bonus for the concession. That makes the country have the project as early as possible. The second issue, of course, the quality. You have to do the best quality because you are the operator for 25 years. So you have to have it in the quality. So these 2 parameters, timely schedule and quality, automatically undertaken in the control, which is really good. Besides, it adds up to the civil community to have these experts to raise to kill the unemployment and really many benefits so on.
Thank you very much. I think that message to transport ministers who frequently, when they look to their finance minister colleagues, don't get a positive answer, it's very interesting. Zero cost to the public purse, a high level of motivation to deliver on time or early, and a high emphasis on quality in order not to impose on yourselves future losses to do with low quality construction. I think it's a very interesting model, and certainly I think worth taking note of, and thank you for that contribution. Now, I have an indication here of some delegations and ministers or ministries that want to make some comments, take to the floor. It may be on these topics, it may be on something else. And I see early on my list is the Minister of Infrastructure of Ukraine.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Dear colleagues, dear participants, Let me, on behalf of the government of Ukraine and me personally, congratulate the participants of the International Transport Forum Summit 2017 and of the meeting Traffic Management, dedicated to the management and development of transport corridor. I would be very sharp. I would like just to inform you about recent developments Ukraine faces concerning transport corridors and transport connectivity. We put open data first. Thanks to recent developments conducted by government, we jumped in world ratio 20 steps forward, and right now present real open data and big data operations to form and to guide transport routes through Ukraine and inside of Ukraine. Definitely there are a lot of reforms ongoing. We do consider the most crucial reform, it's Ukrainian railways, which should be market-based and competing with private operators on the state-owned infrastructure. We do believe that smart roads, autonomous vehicles and electric vehicles is the future which already takes place today, not only in Europe but many other continents in the world. We do believe that together with the European Commission and our Polish colleagues, we will be able to develop new transport corridor to unite Baltic Sea and Black Sea, starting from Gdańsk to Odessa. And in the opinion of Ukrainian government, it should be the most modern and smart road and highway in European Union. There are a number of other issues we pay special importance to, such as road safety and security. Last year, government adopted special road trust fund, and for the last 10 years, we have 5% of that road trust fund concentrated on safety on the roads. By that, we would like to decrease the number of deaths and injuries because of traffic accidents by 30–35% within upcoming 3 years. Aviation. Thanks to liberalizing the market, we achieved huge progress in 2016. We have a rapid increase of passenger traffic by 30% in Ukraine. I hope that all major airlines from Europe will be permanent guests in Ukraine since this year, starting from Ryanair, which already announced its flights from Ukraine. We would also urge to liberalize transport links by vehicles and tiers in Europe. We do believe that only liberalization of the market could lead to the success of the economies, and we would like to be as fast as possible. The previous speaker from Singapore rightly mentioned that was a huge jump in internet technologies and IT services, and transportation is the weakest point right now to deliver goods from business to customer, and we should overcome it. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister, for that account of Ukrainian policy as it's evolving. Could I turn to your neighbour, the Minister from Turkey? I think you've indicated, Minister, you would like to speak.
Saygıdeğer bakanlar, değerli katılımcılar, ben de hem Federal Almanya'nın teşekkür ederken Meksika'nın başarılı dönem başkanlığı nedeniyle tebrik ediyorum. Litvanya'ya dönem başkanlığının hayırlı olmasını temenni ediyorum. Ve yine Sayın Genel Sekreterimize 5 yıldır verdiği emeklerden dolayı teşekkür ederek yeni Genel Sekreterimize de başarılar diliyorum.
And we wish success to our new General Secretary. We would like to thank to Federal State of Germany, and also we would like to thank to Mexico for the term presidency. Duyulmuyor, okumakla ilgili bir sorun yok, duyulmuyor.
But it's for English, isn't it?
Yeah.
Into English?
Yeah, it's English.
Yes.
Be engaged.
And you are here now?
Yeah. Yeah. So. Okay. Bir teknisyen lazım bize. Dur.
This is your English interpreter speaking. We've got a feed from the hall, but we didn't get a translation from the Turkish booth into English. So that is the problem. Apparently the Turkish translators are not on the right channel, maybe.
I mean, relay channel A. Can you get it now?
What about B? The English one is the B channel.
Okay.
No, this is English, and this is Turkish. This is
Okay.
English.
No, you skipped it. Efendim halletmeye çalışıyorlar kabindeki teknik sorunu şu anda. Alo. Evet. Evet efendim yok galiba burada rölede bir teknik sorun var çözmeye çalışıyorlar şimdi. Is it okay? Just deneyeceğim tekrar efendim. Can you hear me? The channel 11 for Turkish. Is it okay?
Speak on
Okay.
channel.
Yes, can you hear me? Now speaking English? Okay. Yes, we can go on. Yeah, okay. Ladies and gentlemen, honorable ministers, I would like to start by expressing our thanks to Federal State of Germany for their warm hospitality. We would like also thank to Mexico for their successful term presidency. And ladies and gentlemen. You can go on, Your Excellency. Konuşuyor, ben duymuyorum ki. Technological developments, new innovations should be supported, and efficient and fair competition conditions should be provided. Such kind of joint regional and international standards should be set. And for establishment of such standards, we must share good practices at national, regional, and international levels. And to ensure continuity of uninterrupted connections, we should increase areas of cooperation. We should widen and spread good technologies, and to ensure national and international data sharing. As you all know, in the field of transport, there are different structures varying from one country to another, such that even the name of the ministry responsible for transport varies from one country to another at significant levels, as well as the scope and duty fields of the institutions related to transport. Therefore, even the minister responsible for transport has differentiating relations with other ministers in one country and another. Therefore, political differentiations may come out as a result of the integration of policies between countries. But there is one unique common thing between each country: the difficulty of ensuring coordination between ministries and local governments. For an efficient international governance in the transport sector, we need a new understanding and a new modeling. And non-governmental organizations have an important role to play in this process. All the sectors in interaction with the transport sector should be approached from an integrated manner at both local and regional level. And also we should draw clear-cut lines between the responsibilities and authorities of related authorities. And also we should develop functional and efficient transport policies. In Turkey, as the Ministry of Transport, while developing our transport corridors in Turkey, we try to be a part of the international corridors throughout the world. The third Grand Istanbul Airport was really important, so we would like to thank for giving a chance to present it here. I want to state that rather than moving forward with public resources in such projects, we introduce private sector contributions so that you can get the social benefits and added value as soon as possible. Thank you very much.
Let me turn to the Minister from Singapore and invite a contribution.
Thank you, Pat. Excellencies, today we are seeing a greater degree of political and economic uncertainty globally. In some societies, a sense among the lower and middle classes that their lives have not improved has fueled dissatisfaction against globalization. In this environment, even as governments move to share the benefits of growth more equitably amongst our peoples, we need to strengthen the open global order which has enabled peace and economic prosperity for most of the world. Just now, Pat asked what our governments can do. Maintaining open and efficient global transport connectivity is fundamental in this regard, and I would like to make 3 points. First, open and efficient transport connectivity is best achieved by having universal regulations for international civil aviation and international shipping. As industries that operate globally and reach across borders, it is important for efficiency and sustainability for resources that regardless whether aircrafts or ships may operate, the same rules and technical standards apply. Singapore therefore strongly supports the ICAO and IMO as the agencies responsible for international civil aviation and shipping policies and regulations. Singapore has been actively promulgating ICAO and IMO's work and contributing to their capacity building efforts. In the same vein, I would like to urge fellow governments to refrain from unilateral regulations which undermine efforts in the ICAO and IMO. The second point, we should give priority in the ICAO and IMO to technical, operational, and efficiency considerations in their policies and regulations, recognizing that decisions based on such by no means undermine the sovereignty of nations. They simply strive to create a global connectivity order that is most beneficial for all stakeholders, countries, airlines, shipping companies, shippers, and the traveling public. My third point, we should not constrain economic competition. We should work towards an open and competitive market for international aviation and shipping. We need to look beyond the interests of our local airlines to pursue liberal air rights regimes as it maximizes connectivity and consumer choice, benefiting the larger economy. According to IATA, aviation contributes $2.7 trillion to the global economy, and every US $100 million invested generates an extra US $70 million in GDP year after year. Singapore shares this belief that through greater market liberalization, the aviation and shipping industries will bring significant gains to economies. Such has been our Singapore experience in the last 50 years. Thank you very much, Fed.
Thank you, Minister. A very clear message there on openness and standards and common regulation. Not sovereignty reducing, as you said, but sovereignty enhancing, enabling. Je tourne maintenant vers le ministre de la Tunisie.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, ministers, colleagues. First of all, I would like to say that I'm deeply honored to be able to speak in this wonderful venue, in this wonderful German city, with politicians representing the public and the private sphere. Tunisia. Tunisia is a new and young democracy, which over the last couple of years has undergone a major change, has made a democratic transition, also an economic transition, based on a new growth plan. The market economy has been consolidated, there is a better regional and international integration, and we want to have an economy with more added value. Logistics and transport play a strategic role in our economic development and integration in the region. 7% of our gross domestic income is accounted for by transport. making a contribution to exports and fostering direct foreign investment. Ladies and gentlemen, with the strategic and geopolitical location in Tunisia, without large-scale infrastructure in the different modes of transport, Tunisia still has a great potential to be tapped for the future. Acting as a regional hub, we have a Mediterranean coast, and thus we are a portal to Africa. We are a gate to Africa. For our 5-year plan, 2016 to 2020, we've developed a structure for reforms and structural reforms. This is about strengthening our maritime fleet, modernizing and optimizing the infrastructure and port equipment, and the implementation of new technologies in information technology as well. We want to open new lines, for instance, Tunisia to Russia or Tunisia to Spain. New ports, top-notch ports will be generated, Srila for petrochemical goods, and the deep sea port offshore. And with that, by 2021, we want to have 1.2 million containers, and that will increase even more by 2029, based on liberalization of aviation, and based on the strengthening of safety conditions and the adaptation of the infrastructure of our airports. Our network in Europe and Africa should be enlarged. Those are the two main markets for Tunisia. Together with the liberalization of aviation, Open Skies is also very important, and Open Skies is now well funded and will be implemented in Tunisia. Tunis Air flies to many countries in the world, and now 2 new lines, Tunis Cotonou, and in 2020 we want to fly to 16 countries, strengthening our economy. We want to strengthen the connection to our neighboring countries on land. There is a Maghreb motorway which is in the pipeline. We want to be able to travel to Algeria easily, for instance. For that, border crossing points will be modernized in order to facilitate the transport of goods and people. Ladies and gentlemen, Tunisia wants to strengthen the role of logistics. 5 logistics centers will be opened on 500 hectares. There will be a PPP project, and the rail network will be connected to ports and motorways. Ladies and gentlemen, with the different regional programs, Tunisia wants to achieve more integration beyond the Mediterranean. It is about cooperation among the regions, and this network, of course, should be connected to European networks and with African and Arab networks. There is a large number of initiatives which are supported by Tunisia. For instance, the Medamos motorway, Legismet, and an integrated Mediterranean policy. To conclude, I would like to say challenges worldwide lead to the creation of win-win situations, strengthening connectivity. Tunisia is open to the world. We are open to working with partners elsewhere, and I would like to thank you for your cooperation and for your attention. Thank you very much. Connectivity is a factor for the development of your country.
Letta Bulc, the European Commissioner for Transport, and his address to the open ministerial session today.
Dear colleagues, excellencies, dear friends of transport. More we are connected, more we are free. drives my transport mission. Regardless of our culture or race, our background, or our beliefs, we face similar issues, locally and globally, in relation to inclusion, safety, security, pollution, congestion, and capacity. We, politicians, are important stakeholders of this reality, responsible for creating predictable, enabling environments, setting global goals, and ensuring no country is left behind. The International Transport Forum provides a welcome and unique opportunity to come together, exchange experiences and lessons learned, as well as share solutions. Issues such as road safety or climate change concerns every country. I invite us all that identification of our common needs, proper planning, evaluation, procurement, and financing becomes an essential part of our governance model. I would also like us to focus more on KPIs, to monitor our impact on the common good, socioeconomical costs like road fatalities and serious injuries, health issues caused by air and noise pollution, congestion, and also growth and jobs. Last but not least, I have to stress the importance of global standardization, recently evolving around connected and automated driving. The cost for innovation need to be shared to deliver efficient and timely solutions. The UNCE and the G7 play a valuable role in this agenda. But before I conclude, I would like to address another possible common issue: financing. The need of progressive societies for more and more digitalized, multimodal, safe and secure transport infrastructure are growing and the cycles are shortening. So new, innovative investment instruments are called upon. The EU has bravely started to address these needs through the deployment of the EU Investment Plan, also called the Juncker's Plan for Europe, where we set ourselves a goal for 350 billion euros of fresh investments by 2018. I'm glad that we have already delivered 194 billion euros of fresh investments in the EU, capitalizing on three elements: a restructured regulatory framework, a healthy project pipeline supported with advisory hub and project portal, and a guarantee scheme called EFSI to lower the risk of strategic projects. So at the end, and I hope you're still with me in the audience, I would like to re-stress the importance of global cooperation, collaboration, and shared vision that leads our actions. After all, we all live together on this beautiful planet Earth and share the responsibility for her prosperity. Thank you.
So we thank Commissioner Bulc for that message, and I think her closing words about sharing prosperity, I'm reminded of the words of Ban Ki-moon when he talked about climate change, an issue that's on our attention today for obvious reasons as we await whatever plans there are in Washington, D.C. The Secretary General then said we've no plan B because we've no planet B, and I think that is part of our shared consciousness here. It's my pleasure now to turn to the Minister from China. We had just a little over 2 weeks ago a very powerful summit meeting in Beijing led by the Chinese President, Mr. Xi Jinping, about the Belt and Road Initiative. It talked about spectacular levels of ambition, and I think it's an appropriate moment that we might hear a commentary from our Chinese colleagues on this.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. First of all, I would like to congratulate on the success we have achieved. We would like to express my appreciation to Germany and the President of Mexico, as well as the Secretary General. Thank you very much for the preparation and the arrangement for this forum. I would also like to express my congratulations on the newly appointed Secretary General and the next President of Latvia. I wish ITF can achieve more, can give new contributions to the development of transport under your leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, connectivity is a topical issue nowadays. When we are talking about connectivity, we have to talk about One Belt, One Road initiative. Just like what was mentioned by the president of the forum, President Xi Jinping proposed this initiative. In the past 4 years, over 100 countries and international organizations played their role actively in participating in the One Belt, One Road initiative. The construction of One Belt, One Road initiative is gradually evolving from concept to action, from vision to reality. From 14th to 15th of May this year, China hosted the Belt Road Forum for International Cooperation. Delegates including 29 heads of state or government and international organizations have participated in this high-level summit. Ladies and gentlemen, when you are sitting here, some of the participants attended this forum. In the opening keynote speech, President Xi Jinping fully and profoundly elaborated on the Silk Road spirit, characterized by peace and cooperation, openness and inclusiveness, mutual learning, mutual benefit, and win-win results. Mr. President also set forth the significance of the Belt and Road Initiative. He also pointed out the Belt Road Initiative is a road for peace, prosperity, openness, innovation, and civilization. In the co-efforts of the countries along the road, and the initiative comes into a new stage, we have achieved a lot of outcomes. During the past 4 years, infrastructure connectivity is improved. With relevant countries, we have come up with relevant plans. We have implemented a lot of connectivity programs. At present, China-Pakistan, China-Russia, and the new Euro-Asia gateway corridors are used as the leading projects. Now we use the maritime transport, aviation as the backbones, and we also rely on other infrastructure to build up a comprehensive connectivity of transport. Practices proved that the achievements we have witnessed so far bring benefits to the people along the routes. It also provided opportunities for the countries along the road. It also provides a new platform for new cooperation. In the future, we will boost our cooperation with relevant countries in the area of transport connectivity. First of all, we will reinforce policy coordination and exchange. Secondly, we will accelerate transport infrastructure connectivity. Thirdly, we will advance the connectivity of international transport rules and standards. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, colleagues, One Belt, One Road is a Chinese initiative. It is also an aspiration of China and other countries involved. We sincerely hope that the good transport practices in constructing the One Belt, One Road initiative can be a positive reference to other parties. We look forward to more cooperations. Thank you very much.
Sheshe. Let me turn, I'm very conscious we're right up on the stop time I mentioned. Could I turn to the Minister from Armenia and invite you to make a brief comment, please, because we're right up on that hard stop time. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you. Dear Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, I will try to be short. But on behalf of the government of Armenia, it's my pleasure to participate in this International Transport Forum in Leipzig, which is aimed at promoting sustainable infrastructure investment, enabling environment and mobility. Development of global transport connectivity and government's challenges thereof touch upon many aspects of political, economic and social life. Connectivity enhancement shall be based on sound economic solutions, need to be economically, socially and environmentally sustainable, and it shall involve and engage people. Armenia puts a great emphasis on diversification of connectivity within the framework of the investment plan for Europe, including on the development of the trans-European transport network and of a low-carbon transport system and sustainable mobility in Europe. Armenia established a clear, consistent and common strategic framework and the regional context for our decisions on enhancing connectivity and effective investment funding. Armenia underlines with appreciation its inclusion into the trans-European transport network core corridors. We believe it can be vital not only to promote and strengthen our relationship with the European Union, but also to boost our economy, attract new investments, open new markets, generate employment and enhance productivity. As a proponent of innovative financing solutions, Armenia supports sustainable transport infrastructure financing and mobility policies based on the best use of the scope and mechanism of existing measures, instruments and technology. We also stay focused on the prioritizing projects with the highest added value, such as cross-border projects, and maximizing their impact across transport networks and modalities by building a mature and stable PPP project pipeline. The accelerated momentum for regional transport connectivity, for example, has allowed us to prioritize the construction of the North-South Road Corridor in cooperation with Asian Development Bank and the European Investment Bank. Ladies and gentlemen, I promise to be short, so I wish all of us productive discussion today, and thank you very much for doing it.
Thank you, Minister, and I appreciate your brevity. I have a long list of outstanding speakers on offer, and I passed the time. I'm going to break my own rule. I said that was the last speaker. Minister from Poland, the briefest possible intervention, but I invite you to take the floor.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for this offer. I would like to address the issues which we are dealing in Poland and Europe in the recent years. The construction of the Trans-European TEN-T network. It is a great contribution of the European Commission that it was even possible to place this network on the map of Europe and then to implement the investment. It certainly required a lot of effort and determination on the part of the EU member states. Poland has been active from the very beginning as far as the implementation of the TEN-T network in Europe is concerned. We recently connected to our neighbors once more with a new corridor, Via Carpathia, running from Estonia, Lithuania, Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, to Greece, and further to the neighboring countries, Ukraine and Turkey. This is a great example of European cooperation. Subsequently, within the European Union, we contacted our Eastern partners and agreed to expand the TEN-T network to 6 Eastern Partnership countries. Within Euromed, we talked about extending the network to North African countries, as well as expanding the European network to the Western Balkans. At present, the Polish government is working intensely with the Chinese authorities on the construction of One Belt, One Road, re-establishing the concept of reinforcing the trade corridors that existed thousands of years ago. It is worth mentioning that in the framework of Euro-Asian land connections, we have the possibility of road and rail transport. And at some sections, road transport is more efficient than rail. Together with our partners from Asia, we are discussing how to improve these connections. The topic of Yesterday's meeting with Minister of Transport of Mongolia proved it was a good exchange. The quality of transport connections is really indispensable for efficient transport governance in economy development. The TEN-T network is an example of successful good work from the basics that transformed into concrete investment. Here then, I would like to propose a new initiative for the ITF members, developing a world transport network map, taking into account road, rail, air and maritime connections. Thank you very much.
Still on the speaking list. As I said at the outset, I apologise, but we have run out of time. I apologise to those who have offered to speak and we've not been able to accommodate. As you know, we started very late. It's wonderful here on this particular occasion, as we heard at the outset, to be at the best attended ITF summit ever, to have the most participating countries ever, to have so many ministers who've given time here over the several days, to have the partnership with the Saxony region. I think there's no more fitting tribute in terms of that collective capacity to the leadership role of José Viegas, with whom it has been a great pleasure for me to work over the past several years. I wish his successor, Mr. Tai Kim, every success. We had our message from Mr. Gutierrez at the beginning about climate change, an important message on a particular day, and also about road safety, something which has been threaded through the conversation and has been part of many discussions here. As usual, I think this session captures a lot of the zeitgeist, the feeling, the pulse of what is being said, and I thank you all for your contributions and for your forbearance and patience for those we haven't been able to include on this occasion, and I return the baton now to you, Señor Presidente.
Thank you very much, Pat, for moderating this excellent exchange of experiences, projects, and ideas. Ladies and gentlemen, this session has given us a broad overview of the challenges and opportunities offered by governance for global transport connectivity. Exercises like this allow us to appreciate the growing importance of the role played by the International Transport Forum by the improvement of public policies at the global level to move toward an increasingly safe, efficient, inclusive, and sustainable transport industry. I would also like to express, on behalf of ministers, our thanks to Mr. Chong Meng TAN, General Director and President of PCA International, and Mr. Yusuf AKÇAYOძLU, Executive President of AI Airports Construction, for his presence with us today and for sharing his perspectives on governance in global transporting connectivity. I would like once again to point out that this has been an honor for Mexico to have the chair of the International Transport Forum over the last year, and wish the very best to Minister Agulis of Latvia, all the best for a very successful presidency further to this summit. In closing, could I thank our invited ministers? I would like to especially thank the government of Germany for his hospitality and the representatives of international organizations and all of you for your presence and participation in this open ministerial session today. I pass the floor back to Pat, who will provide us with instructions for the family photo and lunch to follow. Thank you very much to everyone. Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, the flying instructions for the next part. As every year, we have a family photo. All ministers, heads of delegation, corporate partnership board and keynote speakers, please stay here for family photo. Everyone else is free to leave and take a break. Make sure to bring all your belongings with you. It won't take long, but we need to rebuild the hall of the stage a little bit. So even here at the top table, we need to vacate. And there are liaison officers with everyone to help. And we will also have the plan. Just behind me, you'll see where you should stand for this family photo up on the screen. Thank you.
So please take all your personal belongings, leave your seats, go to the side, please step aside that we get room to change the room into the family